easy to make them this way. However, the tips, what I'm going to tell you to do on how to mixing is going to apply whether you decide to make a red orange or a yellow orange, whatever you are going to make. Okay, so here's the big tip. Whenever I am mixing paint colors, the best way to go about it is always mix the darker color in tiny bits into the lighter value color. Okay, because it usually takes a lot less of the darker value color to add into a light value color to start changing it. Okay, and so today we're going to start making a yellow orange first, and then we're going to make the orange, and then we'll make the red orange from the same little paint well. Okay, so we don't have to use more than really one paint well for what we're doing here. Ultimately, you'll get to decide later if you want to make other oranges. So when I start this, and this is a small paintbrush. If you use a bigger paintbrush, you can scoop the paint. I usually like to scoop it rather than pour it, especially at this level, because I have more control. And I don't want to pour a ton of it. I don't want to make a ton of this color. I just want to make enough to make it through this this chart. Okay, so if I were if you're like me, you're using possibly the same paintbrush to grab your red. Okay? But I don't want to just dip it into the red like this because I have yellow all over it, and I don't really want to mix my colors in these large paint containers. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm going to rinse it out real good. If you're at home and you guys here, you might even, as you're painting, you might realize you might want to tap some of the extra water off, and you can grab a paper towel or wipe the top of the neck of the paintbrush. Sometimes the paint gets up here, so I'm going to take it off. Okay, and like I said, I was going to make some yellow orange first. Okay, yellow is lighter value. Yellow is lighter than red, right? We can see that that's pretty clear. If we actually took a picture of these two and then turned it into a black and white photo, yellow would be a lighter value in that grayscale than the red. So yellow, that's why I'm starting with my yellow. And so when I go to start adding my my red, I'm just going to take a little bit on the end of my brush and start mixing it into that yellow. Now you saw that there was only a tiny bit of yellow on my brush, and and then you saw how I scooped and scooped and scooped and scooped to that yellow. There was lots of scoops. Okay, so I would say that I'd almost put only 1/10 of red that I put into the yellow, if I was thinking in proportions. Okay, mostly yellow, tiny bit of red. If you take a lot more red and it looks more like a regular orange, don't panic. Okay, I'll tell you how we can fix that. Okay, if you end up putting a lot of red and it looks like just like a regular orange, then you're going to just use that as your regular orange, and just go ahead and fill in all your places where you have it labeled orange. Yellow orange, and I'm going to zoom in and start painting. You can see where it's drying. It's kind of got that chalky, and it's a little bit lighter than where it's wet. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, and this is also why we do this, so we can get really familiar with how these paints behave. It'll help us to be a little bit better about our choices as we make aesthetic choices in our painting of our hybrid animal. All right, so I've been kind of working and mixing on top of my paper. I would not suggest that for yourself. I'm doing it because I'm trying to keep everything underneath this camera for you to see, but that's sometimes accidents happen, and if you are mixing paints or even set these up here and they accidentally tip over or whatever, it's going to be a mess. You might spend a lot more time working on. So I would definitely do your mixture off to the side, off of your paper, or shift that over so that you don't have those kind of problems. Remember I told you that it holds the paint pretty good in the egg carton. If you had a good amount of paint in there, it probably it's still wet. You can see on maybe a little bit on mine. Light on and see if it'll help. You can see where it's dry. It's a little lighter here and a little darker here, and it's thicker. So that's when I was saying what I would do is I'd get a brush and probably drop some paint into it just to get it back to a kind of a fluid state. Because it's gotten a little thick. So a little bit of the moisture that was in it has evaporated. You won't need this today, but like if you make a color when we start painting our little guy, you might want to keep using some of the same colors that you mix up. Okay, once it gets to this chalky state though, you can't do anything about it. It's dry and it can't be reworked into a fluid state. So only if it's still kind of got a little moisture in there can you revive it. Everybody remember, what is something important when we need to think about before we mix two colors together? Starting with your light value, you want to think about which is the lighter value and start with that color and add little bits of your darker value color into the light color. Because it's going to take way less paint for that darker value to start changing that light value. Okay? So remember yesterday we scooped the yellow for quite a while and then we only did a little bit of red. We're going to do the same thing with yellow. Yesterday we started with our yellow orange and worked our way to the red because our yellow orange was a lighter value than our red orange. And so the same thing goes, since yellow is the lightest value that we're starting with, we're actually going to start making our yellow greens and work our way over to the blue greens. And so in the same fashion that we did yesterday, I'm going to take a little bit of paint, and in fact I'm actually just going to use my lid because I got a little bit in here. And I'm going to get just a little bit. Now, blue is a little darker than red, so I would be conservative. Where I scooped of yellow, I'm only grabbing a little tiny bit of the blue. One brush load is probably enough. Okay, and if you're kind of remembering the steps, then that's cool, and you could just move ahead. But if you're still like not sure what to do next, then you can wait till I get to the next step. So if you've painted all your yellow green, then we're going to add a little bit more blue into our mixture to make it more of that just regular green. And again, I cleaned my brush off. And I'm going to add just a little bit more blue, and I'm just going to get a little scoop on the end here. And we'll see how that goes. That's looking pretty good. I find one good scoop of the green is pretty good. I might add a little bit more just to just a teeny bit more just to get it. And just to see how it is, go ahead and add it to my paper. That's pretty good. That's a good, nice Kelly green, as they call it. Shamrock green, whatever you want to. Good luck green. my only concern with that. So today we are going to be mixing our violets, which means that we're going to use red and blue. These both have been mixed in with yellow, and we've said they're the darker value. But now, which do you think is the darker value of the two? Which one will we need to start with? Maybe that is an easier way to think about it. I'm sorry, say it? Start with the red, yeah, and add the blue. They're pretty, I mean, they're pretty close. They're both pretty dark, but yeah, the blue's a little bit darker. So I would start with the red. But what we'll find is when we're mixing, we might be using some of the same amounts to get to the colors that we need. So just like we've been doing, I'm just going to create a well of red. I'm just scooping my red in there. Oh, you know what? I'm going to let y'all do this. Oh, never mind. I'll just get new water. I was going to show you how to do the tints first for our monochromatic. Because I had fresh, clean water, but I'll just clean out my water when we get there, because we'll just do our violets. No sense in changing now. Okay. So when I scoop it, it gets kind of messy down here, and so I just try to scrape off as much as I can too. Less of it's going to end up in my water well. And then I'm going to, and just like last time, if I'm starting with red, I'm going to start with the color closest to red. So we're going to add just a little bit of blue to get to a red violet. We'll paint in all of our red violets, rinse out our brush, add more blue, paint our violets, rinse out our brush, add more blue into our mixture, and make our blue violet. Okay. So I know that we're progressively shifting towards this blue violet, or we've been progressively shifting to the darker color. But if I just, like, whenever y'all start painting your hybrid animal, if I still have to make a blue violet, I'm still going to start with my red and progressively add my blue into there. Unless, like, you really understand the proportions of exactly how much paint you need to add of each color, I would always start with the lighter and put the darker, because I'm using like a whole lot less of the darker value. And I don't want to waste my paints that I might need for other things. So I am going to probably do a couple in there and mix it in. So because they're both kind of dark, I didn't just do one scoop like I've been doing, like when I did yellow green or yellow orange. I only used a tiny bit of the darker value, red and blue. Red's already dark to begin with. Okay. Red violet kind of has a maroon look, and you can always paint your paper first. Oh, it is just so hard to see it today, isn't it? I don't know. I think our projector is pretty bad. You might be able to see a little bit better on your computer. Okay, and if it doesn't look right, if you paint it and it looks like a regular violet, then just like I've been saying, just go ahead and use that and put it all throughout the piece. If you just got your paints yesterday, just follow along with us today. Do the violets, and then you can always go back. Okay? And again, like I said, I will post those videos so that you can watch them if you need something to reference. Even if it's like you feel like you got it, if you want to have it playing in the background while you're working to make sure that you remember all the different things we talked about. Let's see if you want to, while we're working, you could just shift over to the seats if it's a little easier for you.
No, I just can't see.
I know, yeah, I know, it's so dark here. Let me zoom in and see if it picks up the color a little bit better.
Hey, Miss Green.
Yeah, it's pretty. Just
I see it on the screen, but is yours like a little bit reddish?
yeah, it should look more red. It's what I would classify as kind of almost like a maroon color.
Okay.
You know, like
Like a really dark beige? I mean, no, not beige. Burgundy.
yes, yeah, yeah, burgundy. Yeah, it's kind of burgundy is usually has a little more brown in it, but yeah, I think that you're right up, you're in the right spot if you feel like it looks like a
Okay.
burgundy. Yeah. we'll do the shade side. And since we didn't label it, but when you think about a monochromatic scale, we're doing basically a value scale, where we have a dark green on one side and all the way to a light green on the other with the pure pigment in the middle. I don't care which way you go for the darker shades. If you want it to go light to dark this way, or you want to go light to dark towards the left, it doesn't matter. Okay, but what we should see when we're done is that we have a dark all the way to light, whichever direction you go. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll do the, I'm just going to do shades first. Because my paint's kind of gross right now. Tomorrow maybe I'll start with that so we can see how the tints work. My water will be clean. Okay, so if I'm making a shade, that means I'm mixing black into my color. So we want to think about black versus I'm actually going to paint this in blue-green. Your color, all the colors are lighter value than black. Okay, so I could mix it into here, but I want to use the same mixture tomorrow when I make my tints. So I'm just going to take a little bit of it and put it in a new little well, and just a couple scoops of it. Rinse off my brush, and I'm going to add a little bit of black into that color. Okay, add a little bit of black, paint it in the square next to the pure pigment. Okay, so if you have a mixture for your monochromatic scale, then and it's a mixture that maybe we've made or it's dried out, go ahead and make your mixture. If it's a primary color, then that's awesome. That'll make things easy. I went ahead and rinsed out, I threw out my water, rinsed out my cup, so I have nice clean water because I'm going to start with my my whites today, and I would suggest that if you're doing your monochromatic style that you do that. Remember, our white is this weird gelatinous, I don't know what kind of state this is, but I'm going to go ahead and scoop some of that into a spot and add some water in there to get it to a state that's going to be easier for me to paint with, okay? Because the reason it's like that, it's really, really thick. So I added it in there, and then I'm going to just get some water on my brush, and I might just... So I have some white prepped over here, and actually on the opposite side is where my blue-green was. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it into my entire bit of white. When y'all paint y'all's, I'm just throwing out some tips as we go along too. When y'all paint your hybrid animal, if you want, since the white is so kind of weird, if you want to make one of your wells just like pure white where you've prepped it and added water in it and mixed it up, that might be a good idea. That way it's there and ready for you to use rather than having to prep it every single time. So if that's the case, I'd leave one of them white and then just take your mixture and put it in another one to start making whatever you need with that white. But I'm just going to go ahead and add my color in here. Just some suggestions to help your life out, making things a little bit easier. Okay, so I don't need a lot, just like the yellow. It doesn't take a lot of the dark value to start changing the color of a light value. So I took a little bit of my blue-green. Easier. I have it on the end of my brush, and I'm just going to mix it into my whites. And it makes those pastel colors that we know. That's like springtime colors. Okay. Now yesterday when I did my shades, I added a little bit of black and I put it right next to the pure color. But because I just took a little bit of the color and added into the white, it actually would be the lightest value that I'm creating with that. And I would actually put it, when I do my tints, I put it in the box furthest away from the pure color, because then the next step after I paint this in is to add a little bit more pure color into that mixture so that I can paint it here. So then I have dark all the way to light. This is a very short value scale. Okay, there are a lot of in-betweens here. So you're just capturing one of those states, one of those in-betweens. All right, we could make a monochromatic scale that's 20 squares long. All right, because there's a lot of steps in between. We're just getting the gradual, just the shifts, the major shifts.